Today's video is a very special one. There's a ton of great PlayStation news. We've got a state of play confirmed by all the big, reliable sources. We've pretty much got Wolverine gameplay confirmed to be coming really soon. A massive PlayStation update that changes everything is dropping, and I'm so here for it. Battlefield 6 updates might finally put Call of Duty to rest. GTA 6 news, of course. And we might actually get the Black Flag remake sooner than expected. Oh, and remember that Stop Killing Our Games initiative. Yeah, I think we're winning this one. Plus, there's going to be some shocking information and revelations about a certain group of people. Not only do they spread lies in gaming discourse, but they also scam their own fans. It's about to get messy. And yes, I double-checked the information. And yes, I'm legally covered to expose these freaks. So smash that like button like it owes you money, subscribe to the channel if you never want to be misinformed, and let's jump into the first big story of the day. So today's PS5 system update is actually bringing something I've been begging for. Finally, you can pair your DualSense controller with multiple devices at the same time. Up to 4, to be exact. No more repairing every single time you jump between your PS5, your laptop, or your phone. Thank God, right? Because honestly, it's been a pain in the ass. Here's how it works. First, make sure your controller's off. Then, you press and hold the PlayStation button along with one of the 4 face buttons for about 5 seconds. After that, just go to the Bluetooth menu on whatever device you're trying to connect and select the controller. Boom, you're in. Now, here's the clever bit. The controller will light up differently depending on which button you paired it with, so you'll actually know which device it's linked to. And if you want to switch devices later, all you do is press and hold the PlayStation button and the face button you set for that device for 3 seconds. That's it. Honestly, way more seamless than the nonsense we've been dealing with. Sony's also sneaking in a new power-saving function for the PS5 itself. I'll be real with you, not something I'll use a ton, but hey, maybe it helps some of you out there. But my main excitement, honestly, it's the fact that I won't have to pair and unpair my controller from my phone anymore. Sometimes it was such a headache trying to reconnect my DualSense back to the PS5, like turn the console off, turn it back on, swap cables, mess around in menus. It got ridiculous. Now I can just pair it with my phone or laptop whenever I want to remote play, and I'll never have to go through that hassle again. For me, that's a huge win. But what about you guys? Are you hyped for this update or kind of indifferent about it? So, Rockstar might have just slipped up and confirmed what we've all been thinking. GTA 6 isn't just gonna be big. It could actually be the biggest game launch in history. Not my words. That's straight from a job listing Rockstar posted in New York for a lead software engineer. The posting literally said the person would be working on what will be the largest game launch in history. Yeah, they actually wrote that and then quietly deleted it once people noticed. But of course, the internet doesn't forget. Now, if you've been following the hype, this isn't shocking. GTA 6 has been building momentum like no other game in modern history. Analysts are already throwing out wild numbers. Some think it could sell 40 million copies in its first year. To put that into perspective, most publishers would throw a parade if they hit 10 million. For GTA 6, that's basically the starting line. But here's the other side of it. Huge launches come with huge problems. Remember how almost every big online game launch in the last decade has been a total mess? Servers crashing, logins failing, people stuck on loading screens? GTA 6 is expected to be magnitudes bigger than those, even if the game launches without online, which Rockstar actually did with GTA 5 and Red Dead 2. It could still buckle under the sheer amount of people trying to get in on day one. And speaking of online, Rockstar hasn't even officially said GTA 6 will launch with an online mode. But let's be real here. That's like McDonald's saying they're not sure if they're gonna sell fries anymore. GTA Online prints money. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Maybe they stagger it like before, maybe they ship it all at once. But either way, this launch is gonna test everything, from Rockstar's servers to your patience when you can't log in on day one. Analyst Matt Piscatella even said this could be the most important game launch in the history of gaming. Not just because of GTA, but because the entire industry is kinda looking at this as a rebound moment. Games have been struggling lately with delays, layoffs, broken launches. If GTA 6 comes out swinging, it could be the shot of energy the industry desperately needs. So yeah, biggest game launch in history? I actually believe it. But what do you think? Will GTA 6 deliver that clean day one experience, or are we all signing up for the mother of all server crashes? Alright, so Battlefield 6 just confirmed something a lot of players have been asking about. A console-only crossplay mode. Yep, if you've been worried about constantly running into mouse and keyboard warriors on PC, you can finally breathe a little easier. Here's how it works. By default, Battlefield 6 has crossplay turned on. So yeah, your lobbies will include PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, unless you decide otherwise. But if you go into settings and toggle crossplay off, then boom, you get the console-only version. That means PlayStation players can still squad up with Xbox players, but PC players won't be thrown into the mix. The devs explained it like this. When a console player starts matchmaking, the system tries to fill the lobby with console players first, within a set time frame. If there aren't enough players, then it pulls in PC players to balance things out. But again, if you just flip crossplay off, it becomes console only. So really, it's all about preference. This is honestly a smart move, because let's be real, controller aim assist versus mouse precision has always been a point of tension. Giving console players the choice is a huge win, especially in a series like Battlefield where large-scale battles can already feel chaotic. The last thing you want is to feel like you're handicapped just because you're not on PC. So here's the thing. The prices for the ROG Xbox Ally handhelds are finally out, and I'm not going to sugarcoat this. It's looking like another massive flop for Microsoft. The base Ally is $549.99, and the Ally X is an eye-watering $899.99. And now we kind of see why they've been hyping this thing up for almost 6 months without ever actually talking numbers. They knew fans weren't going to like it, because let's be real, these are not console prices. These are PC prices. And Microsoft's trying to package it like a next-gen Xbox handheld, but at $900, you're basically just buying a portable gaming PC. Meanwhile, remember when Phil Spenser bashed the PS5 Pro pricing? He was out there talking about how consoles need to stay affordable, how players shouldn't be nickel and dimed. Yeah, well, fast forward to today, and we've got a $900 Xbox handheld, plus the new Series X sitting at $700 this year. That's the same price as Sony's PS5 Pro, by the way. Microsoft is raising console prices, dropping this overpriced handheld, and expecting people to cheer because it can run Steam and Game Pass. But I don't know. When you're asking people to pay PC-level prices, they might just go buy, an actual PC. So yeah, the ROG Xbox Ally could have been exciting, but between the timing, the price, and the whole affordable console narrative Phil himself set years ago, this just feels like another own goal for Xbox. But what about you guys? Do you think this thing has a shot, or is Microsoft about to take another L in the hardware department? Alright, big news today on the Stop Killing Games movement, the petition that's been making waves across the gaming community. Yeah, it's basically locked in. After hitting 1.45 million signatures, it's now all but guaranteed to reach the floor of the European Commission. That's massive. For a while, the big question was, would all those signatures actually count? Because you needed 1 million valid signatures. And sure, they had that extra buffer, almost 500,000 beyond the requirement. But there was still this fear that the counter efforts, the trolls, and the industry pushback could tank it. Turns out, nope. Early checks are showing that around 97% of signatures are valid. If that number holds anywhere close, they're easily clearing the 1 million mark. Now, we're in the verification phase, which will take about 3 months. After that, the petition officially lands in front of the European Commission. And that's when the real battle begins, the legislative phase. That's where lawmakers and parliament members have to decide how to respond and whether they'll actually step up and protect players. The SKG team is already gearing up for that fight. They said they're laying groundwork behind the scenes because, yeah, they've dealt with sabotage attempts before, but they're also planning outreach to lawmakers, countering industry lobbying, and keeping the community active with more updates. So this isn't over, not by a long shot. And look, this movement has serious backing. Even Nikolai Stefanutsa, one of the vice presidents of the EU Parliament, put his name on it. He literally said, "A game once sold belongs to the customer, not bought the company. That's exactly what gamers have been screaming about for years. So here's the bottom line. Stop Killing Games is no longer just an internet petition. It's about to hit the halls of European lawmaking, and the industry can't just ignore it anymore. For me, that's huge. But what about you guys? Do you think this will actually change how companies shut down digital games and servers, or will publishers find new loopholes anyway?
So, I'm going to be honest with you. I hope that your initiative gets everything you asked for, but nothing you wanted.
Why did you do such a thing?
Previously, on Stop Killing Games. Pirate killing video games is evil! From my point of view, the gamers are evil. Well, then you are high! I thought your initiative had failed and died.
Die? No. Became stronger. Yes.
It's over, pirate! We have the signatures! You underestimate my ego. Don't double down. And now, for the thrilling second entry.
So, the UK's new Online Safety Act is already shaking things up in the games industry. And according to a top law firm, studios are seriously rethinking some in-game features because of it. In an interview with The Game Business, Isabel Davies, a senior associate at London-based law firm Wigan, explained how the new OSA laws are hitting game developers. Remember, this framework came into force back in July 2025, and it's designed to protect adults, but especially children, from harmful content, both legal and illegal. The whole point is to make online services safer and more transparent. Here's the catch. This applies to user-to-user services. So if you're a game studio releasing in the UK and your game has chat, user-generated content, clans, or any kind of social interaction, you've got to do a full risk assessment and then carry out safety duties to prove you're compliant. Davies said she's already spoken to some studios that are now rethinking whether to even implement social features at launch. Instead, they're shifting priorities. As she put it, let's get the core game monetization loop working, and then let's make sure the gameplay is good. And only then invest in clan functionality or chat functionality, etc. But on the flip side, some companies feel like they don't even have the option to cut social features. Davies noted, have got it in their head that the community and social aspect is so core to the game that leaving it out is kind of unavoidable. And she added, some games have been built on that basis. What really catches people off guard, according to Davies, is that there is no real exemption for smaller companies in the law. She explained, the regulatory burden is the same if you're one of the biggest platforms on the planet, or you're a tiny studio starting up. If you're a user-to-user service, you have to do this risk assessment and then complete your safety duties. It will get easier in time. The compliance burden will lessen. Practice will develop. It will get better. But no doubt, this summer has been difficult for some. And this isn't just Davies saying it. Andrew Wales, CEO and founder of PlaySafe ID, echoed the same thing back in July when speaking to GamesIndustry.biz. He said, there's a lot of uncertainty around the OSA ruling out there in the games industry and beyond. We've seen a number of small and mid-sized companies, particularly those behind forums and other community platforms, choose to entirely block UK access. Many are struggling with the complexity of OSA compliance and have misestimated the effort needed. So yeah, this new law is already reshaping how games get made and released in the UK. Some devs are pulling back on features, others are stressing about compliance, and smaller studios are struggling the most. What do you guys think? Will this make online gaming safer, or is it just going to make devs cut back on community features altogether? Alright, let's get into this one, because it feels like Sony is finally moving the chess pieces around again. According to Nate the Hate 2, who has been spot on before with things like the latest Nintendo Direct, Sony is prepping a new PlayStation event for next week. The big question is if this will be another State of Play, or if we are finally getting a full showcase. It has been over 2 years since Sony held an actual showcase, which is crazy when you think about how many big projects they have waiting in the background. If you have been following along this year, the last 2 State of Plays were very focused. July was all about about Ghost of Yōte, and earlier this month we got another one, First Light from IO Interactive. Both of those were solid deep dives, but the idea that Sony could give us 2 major events in 1 month is pretty wild. At the same time, it makes sense, because this is the season when they want to build hype going into the holidays and remind people why PlayStation is still the place to be. Here is where it gets interesting. If this new report is true, there is a real chance we finally see Marvel's Wolverine. This was first announced back in 2021, and the latest from MP First says it is now aiming for a 2026 release. That is still a while away, but showing it now would be the perfect move for Sony. Just a reminder to players that yes, Wolverine is still coming, but it does not stop there. Other rumored games include Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet from Naughty Dog, Saros from Housemarque, the team behind Returnal, or maybe even a big third-party surprise. Sony has been keeping a lot of cards hidden, so honestly, anything could happen. At this point, we can pretty much rest assured that something is happening. Ubisoft Singapore is leading the project. Now, if you don't know them, they're the studio behind all the water physics in Assassin's Creed. Like every time you've stared at the ocean in Black Flag, Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, or even Shadows, and thought, damn, that looks ridiculously real, that was them. Of course, they're also the ones who made Skull and Bones. Yeah, I know, not exactly the legacy you want to brag about, but here's the logic. They just built a ton of pirate assets, ships, and systems for Skull and Bones. Ubisoft looked at that and went, well, we're not going to throw this stuff in the trash. Let's recycle it into something people actually care about. And honestly, that makes perfect sense. Now, the timing. According to Ja Video, who have been right before on Ubisoft leaks, the Black Flag remake is currently aiming for early 2026. Originally, it was supposed to come out way sooner, maybe even stealth drop this fall. But then Assassin's Creed Shadows got delayed, everything shifted, and now we're looking at like February or March, which, let's be real, is probably smarter anyway, because late 2026 is already packed with Hexa. And on top of that, you've got GTA 6 in May. And if that thing slips into fall, forget it, nobody's competing with that. But let's get into the fun part, what's actually changing. First, combat. The original Black Flag used that old paired animation system where every move felt like a dance. You attack, the enemy counters, and it all locks into this little cinematic. Back in 2013, that felt cool. Today, not so much. So the remake is moving to the newer RPG-style combat we've seen in Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, and Shadows. That means loot, weapon stats, gear systems, the whole RPG setup. Now, some people are thrilled about that because they hated the old combat. Me personally, I grew up with it. Yeah, it's clunky, but it's also kind of cozy. Still, I'll keep an open mind. Then there's exploration, and this is where it gets exciting. No more loading screens when you dock or leave a city. You can literally sail straight into Havana, hop off the ship, and walk right into the streets without a single cut. That's massive. It makes the world feel alive in a way the old tech just couldn't handle. And they're not stopping there. They're reworking the map. The original had all these little islands that were basically just set dressing. Now they're actually filling them with activities, side quests, and reasons to explore. So instead of 2 chests and done, you'll actually have content waiting for you. And then, the story. They're adding back some of the cut content from the original, like Mary Reed's questline, which got chopped in 2013. That alone makes me curious, because it adds more depth to a fan-favorite character. On top of that, they're scrapping the modern day completely. Instead, they're padding the opening with extra pirate content. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I never hated the present-day sequences, but let's be real, they killed the pacing. Most people want pirates, not cubicles. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a Resident Evil 2 style full ground-up remake. Ubisoft isn't reinventing the game. This is more of a reinterpretation, updated with modern tech, new content, and gameplay tweaks to make it fit with what players expect in 2026. They're using the Assassin's Creed Shadows engine too, so visually, this thing should be stunning. And I'll be honest, I came into this expecting the worst. I figured they'd slap some Skull and Bones assets into the old game, bump the price to $70, and call it a day. But the stuff we're hearing, seamless exploration, Phill filled out islands, restored storylines, RPG mechanics. It's actually sounding legit. So yeah, I'm cautiously hyped. Nostalgia makes me want the old combat back, but if they can modernize the rest of the game while keeping the heart of Black Flag intact, this remake could easily end up being the pirate game we've been begging for since 2013. So here's the narrative people are pushing. Sony isn't even marketing this game. The trailers are getting dislike bombed. It's all politics in disguise. And I'm just sitting here like, guys, come on. I've literally got screenshots from the last few hours showing Sucker Punch flooding social media with promo. They're posting clips, trailers, stills, you name it. The idea that Sony skipped marketing is just made up nonsense. And the dislike bombing? Yeah, I've seen it. But let's be real, that changes nothing. Keep crying, keep sending your little fan armies to mass dislike the trailers. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Ghost of Yōte is still one of the most hyped games of the year, and I'd bet good money it'll be nominated for Game of the Year 2025. This is literally the second big PS5 exclusive this year that's shaping up to be a beautiful, polished release. No performance issues, no "we'll patch it later" excuses. It's running smoothly on both the base PS5 and the PS5 Pro. That's rare these days, and it deserves some credit. But here's what makes me laugh. People are always yelling, "Keep politics out of my games." And then, when a game doesn't have politics shoved in, they're still out here screaming about conspiracies, trying to make everything political, like grow up. It's a video game. You're not losing the culture war over pixels. The engagement you're farming isn't even worth the $2 you get from 100,000 impressions. Me? I'm grabbing this game day one. Cash. No sponsorships, no deals, no one paying me to say this. I just genuinely think it looks incredible. I've been following Ghost of Yōte closely for the past year. I've seen all the trailers, and I know some of these grifters talking on Twitter and YouTube don't even have a clue what they're saying half the time. And while we're here, let me clear up one more thing. That like to dislike ratio extension people keep spamming around, completely broken. I make content. I have YouTube Studio. I can literally see the exact metrics. And I'm telling you 100% straight that extension is not accurate. It's just another fake prop people wave around to fit their narrative. And speaking of fake narratives and people forcing drama just to farm clicks, this whole Ghost of Yōte hate campaign actually reminds me a lot of someone else in the gaming space who's been milking outrage for years. Grummz. Yeah, Mark Hearn. The guy who used to run Red 5 Studios back in the Firefall days? Yeah, him. He's been trying to make this spiritual successor to Firefall called M8er for almost a decade now. And honestly, the whole thing is messy. Here's the deal. Back in 2016 to 2017, he launched these crowdfunding campaigns. The pitch was simple. Give us money, and in just a couple months, you'll get milestone builds. Stuff like playable art demos, tech showcases, little slices of the game. People jumped in because, hey, Firefall had its fans, and the promise of a second chance was exciting. But fast forward 8 years, and what do we have? No actual game. Just fragments and demos hidden behind paywalls. And here's where people feel burned. The promises were super specific, like delivered in less than 2 months, specific, but those milestones never showed up in the way people expected. Instead, what kept coming were new packs for sale. Founder packs, newcomer packs, cosmetics, and even sexy pinup art of characters. You pay money, you get access to some rough demos and a Discord, but the big game, still nowhere to be seen. It gets sketchier when you realize Kern himself has admitted they've raised something like $600,000 total, which sounds like a lot, but in MMO terms, that's pennies. You can barely keep a small dev team alive on that, let alone build a massive sci-fi online world. So either way, the project was always underfunded or mismanaged or both. And the thing is, his reputation doesn't help. Remember the Firefall days? He literally spent millions of investor money on that giant esports bus that toured the country, while the actual game was falling apart. He got pushed out of Red 5 for erratic leadership and wasting resources. So when you combine that history with M8er's endless crowdfunds and vague updates, people see a pattern. Now, to be fair, if you buy a pack today, you do get something, like access to the private demo builds. So it's not like you're paying for absolutely nothing. But the real frustration is that the goalposts keep moving. Every year, there's a new excuse, a new reset, or a new sale, while the game itself is basically stuck in pre-alpha forever. That's why so many backers and critics just flat out call it a scam. Because if you look at it from the outside, it feels less like we're making a game and more like we're selling the idea of a game. So So, is it legally fraud? Who knows? That's for courts to decide. But does it feel like people are being milked with no real end product in sight? Yeah, and that's why the word scam keeps coming up around Grummz.
No, it's more beneficial to him to tweet claims that Sweet Baby's extorting a Chinese developer. Which, if that was true, or even possible, extortion is a crime. Perhaps he could use this money towards some legal defense for this poor Chinese video game company he feels he needs to save from the bullies at Sweet Baby and IGN. Of course, that would never happen. That's his money. Meanwhile, for free, I just did more to promote quote-unquote non-woke games than Grummz ever has. Oh, but he is creating a game, announced 6 years ago, M8er, likely pronounced Ember, a spiritual successor to Firefall. Fire, Ember, get it? Anyway, it's had not 1, not 2, but 3 crowdfunding rounds, with apparently a Kickstarter planned for when the game is closer to finished. Plus, links on the website where you can sign up to give him money monthly, or buy skins for a game that doesn't exist yet. And there hasn't been a tweet about it in nearly a year on the game's account. Oh, and a look through that Twitter shows why he might be so passionate about anime robot girls. His game promises to have a bunch of different mighty waifus. A waifu, for those of you who don't know, is what anime dorks call the cartoon girls they pretend are their wives because they'll never be married in real life because they spend all their day beating off to drawings of cat girls with huge tits. Game should be called Masturbator. So, has he taken tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars for a game that will never actually come out? Time will tell on that one. Maybe it will come out. But the answer as of this very moment is yes. Yes, he has. What's funny is, I don't think I would have made him a scumbag of the internet if he just said, "Hey, do you find my bullshit entertaining? Feel free to give me a few bucks." That's honest. But as someone who spent decades of his life volunteering, I'll always be particularly angry at people who claim to need money for some cause, especially when they don't deliver on that cause. iDubbbz and his wife fucking up a charity boxing event to the tune of $250,000. People who try and tell you that in order to get into heaven, you need to give money. Apparently God can't hear your prayers if you're broke. And goofballs with main character syndrome who tell you that they can't fight for your right to make women in video games more jack-worthy if you don't open your wallet.